Hello everyone, it's time for Good Week Israel, where we will give you ILTV's latest positive highlights. So get ready to smile, because coming up, an Israeli-American economist wins 2021 Nobel Prize in Economics. ILTV heads to Tishbi winery. And finally, ILTV heads to Judea and Samaria for an exclusive with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
We're here right now with one of Israel's most internationally known designers, Alon Livneh. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait to hear all about how you started this international brand, all the celebrities that you met.
I started my own business, my own career almost 10 years ago, after I made internships all over the world. I worked for Alexander McQueen in London, and I worked for Roberto Cavalli in Florence. I moved here to Neve Tzedek. This is my studio and my flagship.
Studio.
Thank you. And I also have studio in New York. So I split my time, half here, half in US. I start here in Tel Aviv, and after a while I said to myself, okay, I want a little bit more. I want to explore the world. I want to see what can I do. So I went to New York. I showed a New York Fashion Week. Actually, from the very beginning, it was a big sensation. I had all the biggest stylists who came to my show. Beyonce stylist, Lady Gaga, J-Lo, almost everyone. And right after, I started dressing Beyonce for her world tour. I dressed Lady Gaga, I dressed the entire Kardashian family.
What is it like designing for some of the top celebrities in America?
I grew on Beyonce's song. I adore Lady Gaga. Naomi Campbell is one of the biggest, I think she's the biggest top model all time.
100%.
And to work with these kind of women, it's amazing.
I recently found out that you were one of the first, if not the first, I believe, Israeli designer to be shown in Paris Fashion Week. What was that like? And what was the vibe there? How did you feel?
It was a big honor for me. I felt very blessed.
Right.
You know, Paris is the biggest place in the world for fashion. It's the dream of every designer to show it in Paris. But eventually I decided to stick in New York. I live in New York, in Soho.
Wow.
And it's very inspiring just to walk on the street, just, you know, to go to have coffee with friends.
Right.
Or maybe 10 years from now I'll be in Paris or Milan or maybe Dubai, I don't know.
Wow, dreaming big, I feel that. How would you describe your lines? Like also your bridal and your evening wear, what makes them unique and recognizable as opposed to other designers?
I think if we are talking about my bridal line, it's very feminine, very sexy, but still very chic. It's very important for me to have the sense of fashion in the wedding dress. For my ready-to-wear line, it's a totally different story. It's a little bit more avant-garde. It's fashion-forward. It's different. So here you can see some of my bridal wedding dresses. This is, for example, one of my favorites. It's all handmade. All the beads, all the lace, all the appliques, all handmade.
Do you have a favorite one from these specific?
I think every collection I have like 5. And
you make 10 and
I have 2 collections every year. This is also one of my favorites. This one. It's very soft, very feminine.
Look at all the little touches.
Everything is handmade, all the beads, the pearls.
They're beautiful. Stunning.
This is a little bit more bohoshy.
Right, I think that's why I got so attracted to it. It's definitely my style. This is beautiful.
We got to tour around the Tishbi winery and see the wine shops, the chocolate tasting center, the bakery, and the restaurant.
We're in the bakery next to the hearth stone oven, which we bake our sourdough breads. We bake cheesecake at the hearth and some viennoiserie, some croissants, but very simple, very traditional things.
At Tishbi's bakery, they bake with the freshest ingredients and even grow their own grains. Tell us a little bit about the winery. When was it established?
The winery was established in 1985, and it was established on the border between Zichron Yaakov and Binyamina. And I'm the 5th generation of the family. The winery was established by my father, and he decided to build the winery because there was a lot of issues with the big wineries of Zichron Yaakov, which were a monopoly. The monopoly actually didn't pay for the grapes he received, and then my father decided if a lot of people in the world can do their own wineries, we will build our own private winery. And actually this was the first boutique winery in Israel. Not so boutique, it started off as 250 tons of grapes, but 31 years later, we're still here.
So, who are these two in the picture? Your great-grandparents?
Yeah, Michael and Malka. They were my great-grandparents from Russia and Poland.
Is the wine that you make here is exported in any parts of the world?
Well, we export around 25 countries around the world. And most of it we sell around here at the shop, at the winery.
Do you guys host any events, parties in the winery?
Well, we host once a year. All our clients come over here to have a barbecue, a dance, and a few cups of wine.
There are approximately 1 million bottles being produced annually.
We make around 22 kinds of wines, from semi-dry whites to reds, light reds, oak-aged reds, Cabernet, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah, Carignans, Malbecs.
Which is the most popular wine that you guys sell?
I think most popular in Israel is Cabernet Sauvignon, and the reds, and maybe Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc at the whites.
Do you have a personal favorite?
No, I like them all.
What kind of people come on these tours? Is it tourists or locals?
Well, actually everybody can walk in. It's a pretty casual place, so people can walk in and taste wine or wine and chocolate. They can have breakfast over here, they can have lunch, and if they come on Friday, they can have a barbecue and listen to a free jazz concert. Well, about the pit that we have here at the yard, this is the first smoker ever imported into Israel. It's an old hickory pit from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And we built this trailer as a mini start as a food truck in Israel. As you know, food trucks are not very popular in Israel. So this is one of the first food trucks, and people come over here to try a good brisket and a good rib, if you're not vegetarian, obviously.
But wine isn't the only thing that is produced by Tishbi. Jam, honey, olive oil, and even chocolate can be bought at the Tishbi winery.
And the thing we carry, that Tishbi basically distributes in Israel, is the Valrhona chocolate brand from France. And this brand comes from Tanner-Hermitage, which is a wine village. And very interesting about that it works exactly like the wine pairing system that we work in our occupation. Basically, every chocolate or cacao comes from a different terroir, a region, and you can decipher flavors by tasting it, same way you taste wine.
For wine and chocolate lovers, the winery created a gourmet chocolate and Tishbi wine tasting.
We have whites and we have dark and we have milk, but the thing we do best is basically help people pair the chocolate they need for the kind of souffle, cake or cream that they want to make. So we have consulting chefs in the premises, or we end up showing up in the restaurants and teach them how to work with it. People come here, the combination of chocolate and wine is very easy. They can taste the dark chocolate from a single region in the world, from a single vineyard in wine. And the Tishbi plans for the future is to build a chocolate school, ice cream school, and a big restaurant so people can walk in and enjoy.
We're here in Yekef Zagot in a special visit by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, receiving an award from the settlements of Judea and Samaria for his ongoing support, together with former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, members of parliament, and different figures of the right.
It is deeply humbling to be here today in this incredibly special place in the world.
We have no greater ally than the United States, and in the United States, we have no better allies than Mike Pompeo and some of his friends.
Beginning in the ancient city of Shiloh, Secretary Pompeo, along with his family, went on a private tour of the site, learning about its importance to the Jewish people. At the end of the tour, after receiving a special souvenir from the visit, Secretary Pompeo gave a short speech calling out the decisions of the Biden administration and asked to strengthen the policy that is known as the Pompeo Doctrine.
It makes clear that Israel exists within its present territory with legal title and sovereign legitimacy as a matter of international law. The Biden administration is now preparing to reverse that doctrine and have our country once again suggest that the Jewish state of Israel is an illegal occupier.
From there, Secretary Pompeo moved on to the Psagot winery for a private lunch alongside former U.S. Secretary of Treasury Steven Mnuchin, former U.S. Ambassador David Friedman, and other prominent figures. Afterwards, Secretary Pompeo arrived at the main event joined by former Prime Minister Netanyahu, who came to honor the Secretary for all his hard work and collaboration, and telling the audience what a visionary.
When you came out with your declaration, you were affirming something that was known and understood by the leaders of the, I would say, the enlightened leaders of the world exactly a century ago. In Versailles, in San Remo, and the other conferences that sought to shape the Middle East after World War I. This is our land. This is our land.
It was clear throughout the event that this award means a great deal to the people of Judea and Samaria, as Pompeo was the first U.S. secretary who officially recognized the legal status of the settlers, which allowed them to build.
We remember his declaration that says that the Jewish community here in Judea and Samaria, they are under the law, under the international law, and Jewish can build in Eretz Israel, in the Jewish land. So for us, the Secretary of State, the former Secretary of State, will be always our big friend and big support of Israel and big support of the heart of the Bible land.
So looking at the broad picture, I find this a very positive event from the aspect of Israel, from the aspect of Israel's security. It tells you that more and more people in the US understand that Judea and Samaria are part of the state of Israel and that Israel needs those areas for its security and for its future.
And when it came time for the guest of honor to speak, he told the audience that despite all the scary premonitions that the decision to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem will lead to war, ended up with a recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of a Jewish state, and also telling the world a simple truth.
Was that the rightful capital of this nation ought to be the place where we have our embassy. I'll never forget the meetings that said there will be war. This will create intifada. This creates enormous risk. And yet, President Trump was bold. He was prepared. We did the work. And we made the simple, truthful statement and moved our embassy to the rightful capital of the Jewish homeland. We made the simple statement that Israel is not an occupying force in Judea and Samaria.
But throughout the entire event, one question was in everyone's mind. Will we see Secretary Pompeo on his way to the White House in 2024?
I can only learn from the past. And with my understanding of this behavior of this specific individual, that he has plans for the future, and we obviously are part of these plans.
Asaf Nissan, ILTV.
I was very surprised. I had taken a brief vacation. I was trying to squeeze one day of the last day of the sailing season in down on the Cape, so I wasn't really focused on this. Down on Cape Cod, and I got up early by chance, and I looked at my phone. I saw there were some text messages. Initially, I wasn't paying much attention, and then I saw there were a lot of text messages, and I realized I better wake up and pay attention. I had missed the call from Sweden because it was already about 6 a.m. East Coast time. But luckily, I have so many friends and colleagues that have won Nobel Prizes that I was able to get the phone number for the Nobel Committee from a colleague, Bengt Holmstrom, and so I called them. And initially, they didn't take my call. Eventually, I found the right person.
Professor Joshua Ingrist, an Israeli-American economist, along with David Card and Guido Imbens, won the 2021 Nobel Prize in Economics for their groundbreaking work using natural experiments to show real-world economic impacts.
The kind of methodological work that Guido Imbens and I focused on over 30 years ago, we started thinking about this, is how to come up with strategies that provide evidence that's as good as the evidence that you would get if you were able to run a randomized trial for something like the effects of charter attendance. And we built initially, we had sort of an idea, and then that became a framework for the use of statistical and econometric methods that mimic the sort of research design that you would get in a clinical trial without actually having to do the trial. Now, you can't always do that, but often you can do that using natural variation.
Though despite the great honor, Angrist says he had a winding road to success. Angrist was born in Ohio and grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After receiving his BA in economics from Oberlin College, he dropped out of the Hebrew University graduate program to join the Israel Defense Forces, but later went on to receive a PhD from Princeton and eventually found his way back to the university as a senior lecturer in economics from 1991 to 1995 and associate professor in the economics department from 1995 to 1996. He then returned to the university in 2004 to 2005 as a Lady Davis Fellow. Following his appointment at Hebrew University, he joined MIT, where his work at the institution earned him the Nobel Prize.
It's just the greatest honor a person could have. It's a high point of my life.
Hi, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm very excited that we're gonna make the salad today because it's a very special salad because it has so many interesting ingredients combined together, making it very, very flavorsome and also very interesting. And the idea came from like basically Israel. You have a lot of herbs here, you have a lot of dried fruit here, everything's super fresh. So it's gonna be a very easy salad. We're just gonna cook the bulgur. You can also use quinoa instead to make it gluten-free. And then we're just gonna mix in all the rest of the ingredients, and then we're already finished with a perfect salad for every season, basically.
Sounds great. Okay, so where do we start? What's step one?
Yes, so the first step is that we're gonna cook the bulgur. I'm gonna take here about 65 grams, which is enough for 1 to 2 people, depends how hungry you are, or if it's a side dish, or if it's your lunch. And then we're gonna cook it in like about double amount of hot water. Basically, you will see like the water will be absorbed, and then either you will need some more if the bulgur is not done yet, or it kind of depends a little bit also on the stove how quickly the water is being absorbed. So I already pre-cooked the water. I always use water already cooked from the kettle just because it saves so much time. Yeah. So we're gonna take like about 120, 130, something like that.
Perfect.
Put it on the stove and let it cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. And in the meantime, we can chop up all the vegetables. So it's perfect, actually.
Let's do it.
So the next step is to chop some macadamia nuts. We're now gonna put some dried apricots into this. We're gonna chop it also quite fine, not too small though, because it's not a mash.
Right.
And then what's really important about dried fruit is that they don't contain any additives, they don't contain any sulfites, especially for people with histamine intolerance, which is what I also have. You don't want to have any additives because it can cause like migraines or
basically the more pure and the more like not touched organic everything.
Usually the organic ones are without any additives and sulfites, and I can really recommend it just because it tastes fresher. You don't want anything else than the fruit itself in your dish. So now I'm gonna take, I have here mint, I have here parsley, you can also add coriander. The more herbs the better basically. I'm obsessed with adding herbs. It's such an Israeli thing to use like mint into your dishes.
Greens, mint in salads,
amazing.
for sure.
You can like take them off the stem a little bit.
Thank you.
And then just
chop them up.
Chop them up, exactly. Now we're just gonna add the bulgur into this bowl of fresh ingredients, and then we're actually already done. still a little bit warm, but it doesn't matter because we still have time to cool it off. And also, once we add the sauce, I recommend letting it sit. Exactly, sit a little bit to really soak up the fresh lemon and the olive oil to get like all the flavors out. It's really, really good. So now I'm just adding some pomegranates. I'm obsessed with pomegranates.
Me too.
Such a great addition to any dish.
Right.
And then I'm gonna take a little glass to mix up the sauce. What we're gonna do is we take like half a lemon, squeeze it. I don't have any
arm muscle.
Yeah. Also, I don't use like any complicated kitchen appliances.
Yes.
We're gonna add some cinnamon, which is the special part about this dressing actually.
And it's gonna add different.
Yeah, and you won't really taste it, but it just gives it like a different kind of layer of flavoring to it.
Right.
Also, if you feel like, oh, it's like too crazy for me, then leave it out, but I really recommend it. Using some olive oil. Olive oil really, it's so worth investing money here.
Right.
Because it just has so many vitamins if you take like one that is high quality, so I really recommend getting one
that's worth it.
Exactly, because you use it all the time.
All the time. Well, you should be using it because you should be seasoning it with
exactly. And then we're already finished.
Wow.
You have a delicious salad, so like basically the perfect lunch because you have some carbs in there, you have some nuts in there, you have a lot of vitamins in there, it's super healthy, you can just carry it with you, put it in a little box.
Right.
And then you have like a flavorsome, nourishing lunch on the go basically with lots of flavor, never gets boring.
I'm gonna try this now.
Let's see what you think. It's like very fresh, right? Like
you just took the words out of my mouth. Very fresh.
All right, that's all for Good Week Israel today. We hope that we've helped you start your week off with a smile. I'm Aaron Porras. See you next week.